we'll see an outline of the drama Macbeth, written by William Shakespeare. This would help us for the better understanding of this drama. So now we start the story of this drama in brief. The drama starts as three witches plan to conspire to fire ambition in the mind of General Macbeth, returning victorious from the battlefield in the company of Banquo, the lieutenant. They meet him on a lonely heath and welcome Macbeth with the three titles: the Thane of Glamis, second one, the Thane of Cawdor, and the third one, the King of Scotland. For Banquo, they say that he will be the father of kings. After this, the witches disappear. King Duncan comes to know from Rose that Macbeth has won the battle after defeating MacDonald, a rebel and traitor. He is pleased to hear this and makes Macbeth the Thane of Cawdor. He sends Rose to honor Macbeth with the title of the Thane of Cawdor. Hearing the news, the king has conferred upon him the title of the Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth's mind is dominated by the ambition of becoming the King of Scotland. He begins to believe in the prophecies made by the three witches. Germs of guilt and sin already in his mind become active, and he begins to think of becoming the King of Scotland by murdering King Duncan. When Macbeth and Banquo arrive victorious to the king's court, the King Duncan welcomes them warmly. He declares that to honor Macbeth, he will pass one night at Macbeth's castle as his guest. He also announces his elder son Malcolm to be the future King of Scotland. Macbeth thinks it to be a golden opportunity to murder the king when he is in his castle as his guest. Lady Macbeth reads the letter received from her husband, in which he makes a mention of the three prophecies made by the witches. Lady Macbeth herself is filled with pride and wants to see her husband as the King of Scotland. On her husband's arrival, she welcomes him and suggests to him that he should murder Duncan and become the King of Scotland. She herself gets ready to murder the King Duncan. Lady Macbeth greets her royal guest when the latter comes to her castle to pass one night. She expresses her loyalty for the king. She conducts the king to his chamber. Macbeth, in a state of indecision whether he should murder the king, he does not find any justification for the deed. But Lady Macbeth, his wife, chastises him, and Macbeth yields to her will. After the night feast is over, King Duncan goes away to his chamber to sleep. After some time, Macbeth enters Duncan's chamber and murders him. In the morning, the next day, Macduff and Lennox enter Duncan's room to wake him. They soon return and shout with horror that the king has been murdered. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth pretend to be shocked at the murder of Duncan. Malcolm and Donalbain, the two sons of Duncan, suspect treachery and, feeling that their lives too are in danger, run away. Malcolm runs away to England and Donalbain runs away to Ireland. Malcolm and Donalbain are suspected to have murdered their father because they have run away. Macbeth is declared to be the King of Scotland. Macbeth is now afraid of Banquo because Banquo knows the whole mystery. He reminded of the prophecy that Banquo's sons will be the future king of Scotland. Outwardly, Macbeth is very close and sweet to Banquo, but inwardly he is much afraid of Banquo. He engages two murderers to murder Banquo and his son, Flints, that very night, who is the son of Banquo. The murderers murder Banquo, who is coming in late hours. His son Flints escapes. King Duncan, now forgetful of world miseries, lies in peace, which is a thing of envy for Macbeth. The two murderers inform Macbeth that Banquo has been murdered, but his son Flints has run away. This news put him in a state of perplexity. Macbeth is giving a feast in honor of the nobility of the state. When Macbeth moves towards his seat, he sees the ghost of Banquo sitting there. This ghost was visible to Macbeth alone. Macbeth begins to behave strangely. At this, the guests stand up to go, but Lady Macbeth handles the situation and keeps the guest satisfied. She chastises her husband for his sentimental and psychological fear. Macbeth sees the ghost of Banquo again and falls in a fit of insanity. Now Lady Macbeth advises the guests to leave the castle as Macbeth is unwell. Macbeth becomes suspicious of Macduff as he does not come to attend the feast. He does not feel secure, and so he is ready to commit any bloody crime to make his position secure. He wants to meet the three witches to know his future. So he goes to the heath to meet the witches. The witches welcome him. They use their magic powers and produce horrible apparitions before Macbeth. The first apparition warns him to be aware of Macduff. The second apparition asks him to be bold and bloody and resolute and not to be afraid of anyone who is born of a woman. The third apparition asks him to be proud and courageous. He should not fear anyone till Birnam Wood come to Dunsinane. In the last, he is shown 8 kings by the witches. Macbeth has become a tyrant. He has no faith in anyone. Everyone moves in a state of fearfulness and in suspicious of others. Now Macduff becomes sure that Macbeth has murdered both King Duncan and Banquo. He does not attend the royal feast given by Macbeth. He goes to England to meet Malcolm and persuades him to invade Scotland to save the country from the tyrannic rule of Macbeth. He wants to restore Malcolm to the throne of Scotland. Rose, a nobleman, comes to Lady Macbeth and informs her that her husband, Lord Macduff, has run away to England to meet Malcolm. She does not like this strange behavior of her husband. A messenger comes and informs Lady Macduff of the arrival of the murderers. Soon the murderers come and they kill Lady Macduff and her child. Macduff persuades Malcolm to feel pity on the woeful condition of Scotland and get ready to march against Macbeth. At first, Malcolm suspects him to be an agent of Macbeth, but later on agrees to do so as he wishes. Macduff is pleased to hear this. Rose, another nobleman, also comes there and informs Macduff of the murder of his wife and child. Lady Macbeth loses all control over herself. She utters something while walking in sleep. She rubs her hands as if she is washing them. She appears to be reminded of the scene of the king murders and feels herself guilty. She says that all the perfumes of Arabia will not remove the smell of blood from her hands. She reminded of Duncan's murder, but then she and her husband go to bed. Malcolm and Seward march against Macbeth and reach Birnam Wood. Several lords of Scotland join them. Macbeth has fortified the castle of Dunsinane. Malcolm orders that everyone in his army should take a branch from the Birnam Wood and place it before him when he is moving towards Scotland, so that no one can know the actual number of his enemy's forces. Satan also confirms it, but Macbeth feels himself safe as he is sure that Birnam Wood will not come to his castle, and there is no man who is not born of a woman to kill him. So he has nothing to fear. Macbeth has shut himself in Dunsinane Castle. He hears women crying. Satan goes out but immediately comes back to inform him that Lady Macbeth, the queen, is dead. Macbeth now becomes indifferent to life. He speaks out a desponding philosophy of life and says that life is meaningless. He calls life a brief candle, a walking shadow, and a poor player. A messenger informs Macbeth that Birnam Wood is moving towards our castle. Now he is reminded of the prophecy of the witches. The soldiers of Malcolm's army come near Macbeth's castle. They now throw away their branches of the tree. Then the trumpets are sounded and the war is proclaimed. Now Macbeth finds himself helplessly surrounded. In his fight, Macbeth kills the young Seward. Malcolm and old Seward enter Macbeth's castle with little resistance. Macbeth sees that his castle is occupied and he thinks of killing himself, but soon he leaves the idea. Macduff and Macbeth and meet and fight with each other. Macbeth thinks himself invincible as no man born of a woman can kill him. But Macduff tells him that he is not born of a woman. He is from his mother's womb untimely raped. At last, Macduff kills Macbeth. Now all nobles and soldiers in the Scotland rejoice in freedom. Malcolm is greeted as the King of Scotland. He promises rewards to his supporters and punishment to his enemies. He invites all his well-wishers to his coronation at Scone. And this is a brief outline of the drama Macbeth.